So I'm here with Phil on the Wysun booth at China Utility Week. Phil, what's Wysun up to?
So Wysun, for those that don't know, we're an industry alliance, not-for-profit, and we're promoting interoperable solutions for large-scale critical infrastructure networks.
And you guys promote the use of smart ubiquitous networks. Now, you're based around a particular protocol.
Yeah, so the history of the organisation really goes back 10 years.
Right.
To when some of the large utilities were deploying AMI networks, and they didn't want to be locked into a single vendor, so they basically started the development of a standard for the communications technology.
Okay.
And that became what's now called IEEE 802.15.4G,
Yep.
which describes peer-to-peer radio that gives you reasonably good distance, good data rates, ideal for IoT networks such as smart cities, street lighting, smart parking, but also for the utility networks. So what Wysun did is take that as the base standard,
Yep.
and then we looked at other standards from other organisations such as IETF, the guys that write the internet specs,
Yeah.
and we created a profile which is little bits of all, or the best bits of each of the standards that you must implement to create an interoperable solution.
Okay.
So one of the things that often people don't realise is just because it's a standard doesn't mean it's interoperable.
Yeah, it doesn't work with each other.
And it takes some extra work to do that. So we have a profile called the FAN specification for field area networks. And that's taken the best bits from IEEE 802.15.4G, a range of IETF standards,
Right.
some really good security stuff from 802 and IETF, and created this FAN profile.
And now you have over 200 members in the alliance.
We
There's
have, yeah.
vendors and utilities, the
Yep.
whole food chain.
Yeah, it's a whole ecosystem of member companies, right from silicon to solutions.
Right.
But equally important, having the end users in there. So the utility industry, certainly in US, Europe, and parts of Asia, has very much embraced what we're doing.
Right.
Because no utility wants to be locked to a single vendor. They all want progress, and we are providing a place where they can describe their requirements, they can describe what sort of testing they would like us to do to prove products, and we're offering that.
And then the vendor companies that are part of the alliance, when they follow the FAN field area network profile, then you're almost guareeing that these things work together, even though the stuff is coming from different vendors.
Correct. And in fact, our test and certification program goes a step further. So within our testing and certification, we have two parts. Conformance testing, which verifies that a product actually meets the requirements of the specification, all of the standards. But we also have an interop testing component.
To make sure they actually work together.
Which means that we have certain of the already certified products that when a new device has passed its conformance test, it's then tested for interoperability. And then that guarantees that, well, as close as possible, guarantees that products will actually work together.
Okay. Now, we were on a panel here this morning after the keynote on digitization of the energy system, and one of the topics that came up is there's so many technologies, there's so many standards, and it's getting better. But there's not one solution. So we obviously have 5G coming down the line, we have narrowband IoT, and there are other wireless standards out there. From your perspective, what's your unique selling points in terms of this makes more sense for utilities because...
Right, so I think with with YSUN doesn't stand alone, or YSUN fan doesn't stand alone. So there's a concept of a device called a border router,
right,
where the field area network, which is interconnecting smart meter streetlights, then connects into usually a higher speed network.
So for the backhaul or
yeah, for the backhaul connection, that could be fiber, or it could be cellular, it could be LTE.
Yep.
If you have a small network, it could be LTE, Cat-M, or even NB-IoT.
Okay.
So if you look at, I mean, there's all sorts of different business cases for this. I think, you know, there are a number of applications where I would say that, you know, 5G is really focused at the moment, I would say, on high data rates. Autonomous vehicles is a great place for 5G.
Agreed.
Are you really going to want to put a $2 battery-powered sensor onto a 5G network? No. I would equally say that NB-IoT is not going to be applicable for 100% of cases anyway, whatever the MNOs say. And there are definitely going to be opportunities and advantages of heterogeneous networks. So, for example, you might decide to connect 100 gas or water meters into a cellular access point. Then that access point might use Cat-M, it might use LTE, but it could use NB-IoT if you want the extended range, because the data throughput is not that high.
Yeah, so we say horses for courses, right?
Horses for courses. I mean, I think, you know, a unique point of YSUN though is that because the network is self-healing, self-forming,
it's a mesh network, right?
It's a mesh network. You can deploy border routers at various intervals, and if one of them fails, then a device will just hop through the mesh.
Find another way
and then you, if you're running your own network, your network management tools will recognize that device has failed. You can go out, fix it, replace it, without actually any notice to the network performance.
You have redundancy built in.
Redundancy, yeah, exactly. And as part of that, you know, there's when you look at the deployment for cellular, it's very rare you get 100% coverage even in an urban environment, let alone rural.
You can try, especially in rural. And I'm a big fan of 5G, but the rollout of 5G is going to take a while. It's expensive, and with all the cells, and you know, it's going to be complicated.
And I think the energy consumption is going to be quite high as well. So ultimately, you know, I would say there's a really good, strong use case for lots of use cases for wireless mesh.
And we were chatting last night. What are, in today's world, what are the typical use cases you're seeing from utilities for products with YSUN? Is it still smart metering, or are they expanding?
Well, so the initial deployments were for smart meters, but really for AMI networks. This is not just about meter reading. Some places, it actually you can justify the smart meter network purely on meter reading.
Again, depends on the business case. It's different countries, different utilities.
But what we're seeing with smart metering is that there's plenty of data at the meter that you can then use elsewhere in the network. Okay. So use cases such as outage management, power restoration, volt var management. So basically, the meter will have the information about the voltage, the current, phase angle.
Yep.
If you can deploy that locally and do some edge computing, then it means that an outage management is a brilliant example of this. The network right at the edge can work out where the failure is and isolate a failure and use switch reclosers to reconfigure the network. And you can do all of that even when the connection to the backboard goes down.
Because you've got let's say the decentralized, the thing at the edge, and it's doing the logic for you.
Yeah, exactly. So if you're and certainly in a scenario like if you have tornadoes, hurricanes, where you are definitely going to have damage to power distribution network. You quite often get damage to a cellular network as well.
True.
So then,
typically gone as well.
Yep. So if you're using cellular to communicate to the control office, you're blind.
Well, you need to wait for them to put the cell towers back up in whatever shape or form.
Exactly. So for and this goes back to our discussion this morning about the requirements for edge computing, distributed computing. Having a mesh that replicates the way the internet works is actually quite advantageous.
I agree. And if it self-heals, then it looks after itself.
You also mentioned other use cases, so street lighting is a particularly valuable case, and in some places they're integrating the street lighting network with the smart meter network. So Florida Power and Light has got 4 million smart meters, 500,000 street lights all on the same network. When they installed the street lights, they actually saw a performance improvement in meter reading. Just because
there was more nodes, and
they're higher, and a node 10 meters up in the air has a really good line of sight connectivity.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is that nobody actually had to go and reconfigure the network because it optimizes itself.
Because the node just powers on and joins the mesh.
Yep.
And then the routing within the mesh will figure out, here's a new guy, I go over here and whatever. And I assume with electric vehicle charging or whatever. So as more and more IoT devices get put out at the edge, you could get a bigger mesh and in a smart city.
Yeah,
it's ideal for you.
But also, going back to the utility use cases, as you start integrating renewables, then control of the network becomes much more critical. Being able to do edge computing and have some sort of local management of generation and usage is definitely advantageous.
No, that's where it's all headed, with decentralized energy out of the edge and whatever.
Exactly.
Come here, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, Phil.
Thank you.